to remember who God is and who I am. There you go, lifting my load again.
Hey everyone, it's been a little bit since I recorded one of these now that we're doing them not all the time, but about once a month. And it's given me some time to really think about and pray about what I want to share with you. And I thought as I kind of been sitting back and looking at the landscape of what's going on in our world and our country, I wanted to kind of take you inside the mind of a pastor and into some of our training as pastors, not because I think what I do is so much different than what we're all called as believers to be, because a lot of times in these videos, it's really talking about how we are in this together and how we're on this journey together. And I believe that we are. But there's a piece of training that we have as pastors that I think would be really helpful during this time. You see, as I sat back and just watched and listened, especially kind of watching interactions on social media, what I notice is a lot of trauma. I think there has been a lot of trauma that has been absorbed by a vast amount of folks. Whether it's a trauma related to the coronavirus and how that's impacted our lives, whether it's financially or just given us new amounts of fear and anxiety about life and about things getting back to normal, about getting sick, whether it's about race relations and really anxiety about what is the heart of that, is there anything to it, what is happening, and violence and all these sorts of things. What I've seen is trauma. And when someone comes and wants to talk to me who's been through trauma, one of the first rules of thumb that we are trained to do as pastors is just to be there with them, to share in their story, to listen, and to do whatever we can to understand. It really comes from Galatians chapter 6, where Paul writes that we should be bearing each other's burdens. And so doing that, we fulfill the law of Christ. And in that context of Galatians, you have a very divided population of Jews and Gentiles who are trying to figure out how to live with one another. This is a whole new thing. And as I think about our country and our world, people have experienced trauma. And so when I have my friends share with me, why are people so upset about racism? Why are they so outraged by this person or that person? And they will share examples about maybe why this person or that person isn't worthy of our outrage. What we miss is trauma. And that if you've been in a traumatic event or you've had something traumatic happen to you, well, anytime something comes into your life or you experience something that's even close to that trauma or resembles even just part of that trauma, it sets off a reaction in us. Our blood pressure rises. We get more anxious. We get fired up. We get that fight or flight response. And it's part of this kind of post-traumatic stress. And what I see a lot right now is post-traumatic stress. That it's not about any isolated event, but it's about sustained trauma over a period of time that builds and builds and builds and builds, and so that people are raw. And as I'm encountering people in conversations, people are raw. People are traumatized and broken. You might say, Tom, you're just being dramatic. But we see all the telltale signs of trauma. Of someone who just needs to be heard. And there's an invitation for each one of us to come and bear the burden of that trauma. And that's hard, especially when we're not really sure why that trauma is there in the first place, if that trauma is legitimate. If you were to come into my office and share with me that you've been through a traumatic event, whatever I think about your story, my first calling to you, the first piece of my training is to just walk with you, to just receive that, to enter into that pain with you, to emote with you, to empathize with you. I can't tell you how you should feel about your trauma. I can't tell you how you should react to your trauma, because by doing that, that just belittles your story. That just belittles where you're coming from. And I can't do that. So I want to suggest today that you do that. That the next time you're offered with a social media post that just makes you mad or makes you burn hot, or you can tell there's a lot of emotion behind it, instead of just reacting, instead of when you feel that fight or flight response brewing up inside, instead of just reacting to that, to just listen, to just be, to seek understanding. And I wonder if we were to carry that posture together, if we would be more faithful in our ministry to represent Christ in our world. And I know that's hard, because you might be saying, yeah, but I disagree with this, or this is against everything that I'm all about. But are you willing to be a person of peace to a person or a population that's experienced trauma? And today you might need that yourself. So may we, as the body of Christ, be people of peace that are willing to walk the extra mile, to listen a little extra hard, even when we are shaking our heads inside, that we just hang in there, that we might faithfully follow Christ today. I pray that you'll join us in this endeavor to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God together.
Your love carries me through all the valleys and the darkest places.